Who is Moses? What did he do? And how does it matter to me? Let me tell you. So basically, during this time, God's people were enslaved by the Pharaoh in Egypt. And Pharaoh was so afraid of them overthrowing him that he basically ordered any male babies who were born to be killed. However, the midwives at the time lied and basically said, man, they gave birth so quick that we couldn't actually get there quick enough, which is pretty courageous of them. But anyway, so Moses is born, and to save his life, his mother puts him in a basket in the Nile, which is where we get the term Moses basket from, and the Pharaoh's daughter eventually picks him up and names him Moses. If we fast forward a few years now to when Moses is more grown up, he sees his people enslaved and sees an Egyptian beating an Israelite, and so he goes over to defend him and actually kills the Egyptian in anger. But obviously then he has to flee to avoid being killed himself as a punishment for what he did. And so he finds a new home and a new family and a new life just tending to the sheep outside of Egypt. And Moses encounters this burning bush. And basically in the bush, God calls Moses and tells him his plan, that God will free his people from slavery and that Moses is to lead those people out of Egypt and into the promised land, after first asking Pharaoh to set them free. So Moses spends a whole bunch of time then throughout Exodus looking for any excuse not to do it. He's like, why me? They're not going to listen to me. Can somebody help? And so God, shows Moses what he's capable of with a bunch of signs, and he also tells Moses to take his brother Aaron to help him, because Aaron's a good talker. So he goes to Pharaoh, and basically the Pharaoh hardens his heart and repeatedly says no, and so God sends these 10 plagues to try and convince Pharaoh to set the people free. The Nile becomes blood. He sends frogs, gnats, flies, he sends a plague onto all the livestock. There are boils, there's hail, locusts, darkness, and finally God threatens to kill all the firstborns, sparing his own people by asking them to celebrate basically Passover and smear lamb's blood on their doors as a sign. And this is the final straw for Pharaoh. And so he's like, okay, go, take your people out, stop this now. And so Moses leads God's people out of Egypt and into the wilderness, where they are led by a cloud in the day and a pillar of fire by night. However, Pharaoh hears that they seem lost, so he sends soldiers after them to catch them up and bring them back. And as they catch up, they reach the Red Sea, and God calls on Moses to raise his staff and split the Red Sea in two so that his people can escape. Later on, God then speaks to Moses on Mount Sinai, giving him the 10 commandments for his people to follow, and Moses and the people spend 40 years wandering around in the wilderness, waiting to find this promised land which God said he'd lead them to. And obviously walking around for that long in the wilderness means people start doubting whether God's going to keep his promise and whether Moses is going to lead them to it. So they start doing things like worshipping other idols and questioning Moses and God. But eventually they do arrive. And so despite the mistakes that Moses made in the past, despite his reluctance to step forward into his calling, despite his self-doubt about why God would choose him or whether people would even listen to him, God used Moses to faithfully lead his people out of slavery through all the challenges they encountered along the way and into this promised land.